Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
It has been what they told us about it. It's a whirlwind and a lot of things going on at one time.
It's an awesome experience. You know, not too many people can say they can sit in front of a bunch of cameras and talk.
Not that hard, is it, Rodney?
Not too hard.
We do it all the time. Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Tider Insider TV. What can we say? Presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris. Tonight, Buffalo Rock has provided us with Diet Pepsi. You know, Pepsi is a Southern tradition, and Diet Pepsi is the way to get that great taste and none of the calories. And I do mean great taste. Pick up some terrific Pepsi products the next time you are at your local grocery store or convenience store, for that matter. Well, the most anticipated college football event of the summer, Rodney, anywhere in the country, is here, and it's delivered so far on what it promised. The 2017 SEC Media Days kicked off yesterday at the Hyatt Regency Birmingham Winfrey Hotel in Hoover, with SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey delivering the opening address of the event. The first day teams included Arkansas, Tennessee, and LSU, with all three head coaches and three players from each school answering the hard-hitting questions about last season and how they're preparing for the upcoming year. WVUA 23 and Tider Insider TV's Brandon Kamerman and Shelby Ballentine are in Hoover, and Brandon joins us with the latest on the second day teams. Brandon?
We are through 2 days of SEC Media Days here in Hoover, and unfortunately for us, Alabama doesn't go until tomorrow, because it would be nice to have some of that content for Tider Insider TV today. But of the 7 teams that have gone here in Hoover, 5 are on Alabama's 2017 regular season schedule. Whether or not those teams go up against Nick Saban and the Tide on the football field, we all know that they have to battle with Saban on the recruiting trail. Saban's adept at plucking players right out of his rivals' backyards, and that's something those rivals want to stop.
LSU has had a history of keeping their players in state, and those guys come and have a lot of success. Obviously, Alabama's coming in and take players out of our state. We have to stop them, and we're doing everything we can legally to stop them, and eventually we will. But obviously, the benchmark is going to beat Alabama. And we have to do that. In order to do that, we need to keep our players at home. So we have work to do. Give credit to Coach Saban. He's done a great job of recruiting. These guys do a great job of recruiting. But I do believe that eventually we'll stop the bleeding. We'll get most of the guys to stay at LSU. But we need to beat them. We need to win championships so they can stay home and win championships.
We've got a great product to sell. It's a great place. I went to school there myself. I can tell kids my story and the connections I have and the networking that I've been able to do. So when it comes to recruiting, we won't struggle at Georgia to recruit because we've got a great product to sell. And that in and of itself is what fires me up. It's not really about Alabama or what they do. It's about what we do.
Rodney, I'm interested in your take on what Coach Orgeron had to say. Obviously, Coach Saban's done great in Baton Rouge in recent years. What do you think about Coach O challenging his team to recruit against Alabama? Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, you know, he better challenge them, Brandon. There's no question about that. He got wiped out in the state of Louisiana by Alabama last year. Alabama goes in and gets 6 of the top players in the state. I mean, they nabbed 2 great players out of Baton Rouge there, and Dylan Moses, Chris Allen. Also, the junior college player, Isaiah Buggs, is a native Louisiana guy, a guy that was always considered, you know, an LSU lean. And I really think that part of what happened last year, too, was with Les Miles being fired, he had the relationships with a lot of those guys, and I think Alabama did an outstanding job after Les Miles was let go. And, you know, Orgeron is going to have to really shut the doors there. And it's going to be difficult because Alabama's made a lot of headway.
Yeah, and going forward, and it's not like Alabama goes down to Louisiana and signs a ton of players. I think that's overplayed a little bit. But they've signed some real quality players, guys that there's no doubt, had they not gone to Alabama and gone to LSU instead, it could have tipped the balance in the other direction. Well, going forward, do you think Alabama can still win its share of battles in Louisiana against Coach O?
I think the scary thing for LSU is this. What you said wasn't initially right. They got some key players, you know, obviously not a lot when you're talking about getting top players out of that state in terms of the number of top 10 players. But this past year, They got 6 of the top 8, 9 players in the state of Louisiana. That's scary for LSU. If they can't turn that around, Orgeron won't last long.
Yeah, that's not closing up the state borders, that's for sure. Hey, Brandon, thanks from over there at the Winfrey Hotel in Hoover. Great job. Well, you're out of luck if you were planning on buying tickets to the Crimson Tide's opening game in Atlanta against Florida State. The game is officially sold out, a hard sellout. There's a lot of anticipation for the September 2nd matchup, as the two teams could very well be ranked number 1 and number 2 in the country to start the season. Plus, you've got the brand new Mercedes-Benz Stadium where the game will be played. CEO and president of the Atlanta Falcons, Rich McKay, is excited about the start of the season between these two great programs in that beautiful Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
To think that your first game is going to be Alabama, Florida State. I grew up as a young kid in college football. My dad was a college football coach, so he loved to play big games early, loved to come play Alabama, loved to play it. So I'm glad to see college football get back to that. And for us to be able to host it will be really neat.
His dad that he referred to make sure people understand, the late, great John McKay of USC, one of Coach Bryant's close friends, and they opened up a very memorable game in 1971. A couple of times. What about the fans who have been worried about the stadium? There had been a lot of chatter that it might not be completed, but it looks like everything's going to be good to go, and this is going to be green lighted at the new place and not the old Georgia Dome. Well,
I know we have some posters on TiderInsider.com that give us picture updates just about every day, and Gary, it certainly looks like that it's going to be fine. I don't think there's any expectation that it wouldn't be. Yeah, it's going to be marvelous. I always thought the Georgia Dome was incredible. And now there's no telling what I'm going to think of this Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'll be there. I can't wait. Well, Rodney, it's watch list season. It has kicked off with 5 Alabama players being named for a variety of awards. Mika Fitzpatrick, Calvin Ridley, Bo Scarborough, and Jalen Hurts were all named to the Maxwell Award watch list. The Maxwell Award goes to the best player in college football. Hell Hinches is on the watch list for the John Mackey Award, given to the most outstanding collegiate tight end. And Deron Payne and Fitzpatrick were named to the Bednarik Award watch list, which goes to the best defensive player of the year. Well, still to come on Tider Insider TV, the SEC Media Days edition, if you will. Alabama baseball lands a huge recruit and a state champion all in one guy. The new member of the 2018 class, we'll talk about him coming up next. And a former Alabama basketball player give us his take on Coach Avery Johnson and how recruiting has really propelled the Crimson Tide. And also coming up, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Phone lines are available right now at 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. You can email us at the address on your screen. Bethany will be watching for those, or you can tweet at us. Please use the hashtag TITV so that Bethany will get your tweet and we'll be able to get it on the air. We'll be back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider TV. We'll return from inside Bryant-Denny Stadium in our WVUA 23 studios right after this. And welcome back to Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. As always, alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. It's only been a short time since Brad Bohannon accepted the head coaching job for Alabama baseball, and he's already hit the recruiting trail, and, that's where it all starts. And last week, pitcher Landon Green, just one of the heroes of Helena's Class 6A state baseball championship season under Coach P.J. Guy, announced via Twitter that he plans on signing with the University of Alabama. Green, a member of the class of 2018, allowed 1 run through 6 innings in his start against powerhouse Coleman in the championship series this past season as a junior. You'll like these numbers: 11-0-1 on the mound with an 0.69 earned run average. It's hard to hit off this young man. Rodney, no different in baseball than any other sport. Alabama right now in the SEC, quite frankly, is at the bottom. They finished last this past year. But if you're going to turn it around, you have to hit the recruiting trail, and Coach Bohannon's got an excellent track record, as we've talked about, in signing great players at Kentucky and Auburn. That's the best way to turn it around. You get some really talented players. I mean, that's what it's all about. And, and certainly you have to develop them as well. But again, I agree with you, Gary. I mean, when you talk about the things that he's done, been a part of as assistant coaches at Kentucky and also at Auburn, and not only recruiting but help them develop players in those programs. I think it's just he's done a fantastic job, and I really think there's a lot of excitement, a lot of enthusiasm with the direction that they've already gotten started on.
They only won 5 conference games, Rodney, but they swept Auburn at Auburn. Coach Bohannon will remember that well, and they lost a lot of 1-run games and lost a lot of games against really good teams that they could have won. Do you think win-loss wise there's a chance for a lot of improvement next year? Well,
you'd certainly hope so. Yeah. I mean, you'd hate for them to go in the other direction for sure. But You know, Gary, yeah. I think, you know, we have to see how things kind of, I think obviously the fall is going to be really big, and that they get off to a good start there in terms of their fall season and practices and all of that. And but I just think the key is right now that it really seems like there's a lot of optimism and enthusiasm, energy within the program, because I think there's a lot of confidence. I think people are really expecting Brad Bohannon to do a fantastic job. Yeah,
a lot of excitement around the program. You're absolutely right. Well, moving on from the future of Alabama baseball to a couple of former Alabama basketball players. Former Crimson Tide star and current NBA forward JaMychal Green decided to attend Alabama back in 2007 for then head coach Mark Gottfried, who had a lot of big-time recruiting classes too. Last weekend, JaMychal was asked about current head coach Avery Johnson and his recruiting efforts, and JaMychal had nothing but positive remarks about AJ.
Alabama heading in the right direction. I think Coach Johnson, he's doing a great job bringing some great recruits in. I think the 2 recruits that he has, I think they'll make a big change and help the talent that he already has there. I would want to play for a coach and a player that played in the NBA. He got the connection, he's got the ties to the NBA.
We mentioned enthusiasm for the baseball program, but for basketball, it's as high as it's been since those early Mark Gottfried years when Alabama made some serious deep NCAA tournament runs and won an SEC championship in 2002, Elite 8 in 2004. People are expecting a lot this coming year.
Yeah, they are, and I think we've seen some really positive steps, you know, in the last couple of years. Obviously, he's done an outstanding job, I think, keeping this team very competitive. But also, I think, Gary, when you look at the recruiting, that's why, again, going back to what we said about baseball, it's why there's so much optimism. Yep, you got to sign the best, and then they usually turn into the best players at the next level. That's what you're looking to do. All right, up next on TITV, another former Alabama basketball player is trying to make a name for himself in the NBA Summer League, try to catch on with an NBA team. And next, phone call time. All right, phone lines, according to Bethany, are open, 205-348-9882. Call now and get through. Hey, man, Alabama's going to be at SEC Media Days tomorrow. I know you want to talk about it. Give us a call. You can email us there at TITV@WVUA23.com or tweet at us using the hashtag TITV. A lot of ways to get in touch with us. We'll be back with your phone calls after this. Former Bama hoop star Levi Randolph still has NBA dreams. He played for the Orlando Magic summer team in the NBA Summer League last week, and then on Friday he started a stint with the Minnesota Timberwolves entry into the Las Vegas Summer League. He played with Orlando down in the Orlando Summer League. On Saturday, Randolph finished with 10 points against the Raptors with 4 rebounds and an assist. Hopefully he'll catch on with an NBA roster. I think he's good enough to play in the league, and just got to keep working at it. Well, welcome back to TITV alongside Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. It's phone call time, and they're lined up for us. Pardon me. Let's go over to Bessemer and talk to our buddy John. John, how are you?
Gary, where you been at, man?
Man, I've been back for a little while, brother. You got to tune in.
I heard you were sick, man.
I had a little voice issue, but it's all good now, man.
Yeah, I'm glad you're back.
Thank you.
I want to find out about our defense. Is our defense going to be better this year than it was last year? Later.
All right, John. Rodney, it'd be tough to be better than that unit. They were really good, and you do lose a lot of players. I think they got a chance still to be real good. Now, to live up to what last year's defense did is going to be a tough chore.
Or the last 2 years, really. You know, I mean, they've lost a lot of players, John, but again, they've recruited really well. They just have a lot of new faces. I mean, when you're replacing Jonathan Allen, Dalvin Tomlinson, Ryan Anderson, Tim Williams, Reuben Foster, Marlon Humphrey, I mean, that's a lot of really outstanding players, a lot of great leadership there. And again, there are a lot of really talented players that they've recruited that I think are going to be really good players, but you know, will they be able to live up to the standards maybe of last year or whatever? You know, who knows? That remains to be seen.
All right, let's go to Beham and talk with Reg. Reg, what's going on, man?
Hello, guys. I seem like I can relax more each week after I talk with you to get the answers to my questions. Let me ask you, will the drop-off in the numbers that Alabama gets in recruiting football players this year, will that affect us in the years coming? Like I saw where Tennessee was ranked number 3 nationally. Do you think that'll cause us to have a drop-off against these teams later on?
Reg, it won't. Thank you. And I'll let Rodney expand, but I'll just tell you the short version is it won't. They're going to sign 22 really good players. They've got a lot of depth in the program. This is going to still be a really good recruiting year. Yes, they may not numbers-wise sign as many as they have in the past, but Rodney, I don't anticipate any drop-off. Do you?
Yeah. If things hold the form, obviously you mentioned 22 players. There's another one that's a gray shirt, Jerez Parks, who was a top 100 player from last year's class that agreed to gray shirt, which is unheard of. You know, Reg, they're going to sign an outstanding class. They're going to sign one of the best classes in the country. We'll see what happens, you know, when it all unfolds in terms of where these rankings end up. But I guarantee you what, Alabama will be up there no worse than top 5, I would think, probably even higher than that. And we'll see if Tennessee holds on to what they've got. This is real early. Yeah. What happens on these ratings now, a lot of these teams that already have a lot of commitments, they get rated higher.
Numbers.
It's inflated.
Yeah.
It's inflated.
Long way to go until December and then February. Remember, 2 signing dates coming up. All right, let's go to Odenville and talk with Michael. Michael, welcome into the program.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well, Michael.
Okay, well, a lot of them realize, Gary and Donnie, is most people don't realize that Alabama's offense has been managed the way it's most been properly managed. Their defense is going to be as strong as it's normally been. They got just basically plug-ins is what they've got.
All right.
Especially when they flip Diggs from offense to quarterback. They don't realize how much speed they're putting on the field to control the ball. And what I really want to know from Gary and Donnie is what is y'all's prediction between the FSU and Alabama game?
All right.
I'm a diehard Alabama fan, heartbeat to heartbeat.
All right, we got, you know, Donnie, Rodney, you know.
That's my brother.
Yeah,
That's
there
his
you
name.
go. You know, I'm not ready to make any predictions yet, Michael, because we're going to do that later in the year, before the season and week to week. I'll just say this, like, you know, you're right. Alabama's loaded. You're right. It's very difficult to pick against Alabama in any game they play. That's all I'll say right now.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. I'll say I think this is obviously, to me, as you look at it on paper, the most difficult probably opener they've had, and they've had some really good ones. You know, big teams lined up, obviously Michigan, USC in the past, and Clemson one year also, and some really good teams. But I think this FSU team will probably be the best one they've opened up with.
I do too. It's going to be a tough one, and we will predict that game later on. Coming up next on Tider Insider TV, months after the season ends, an Alabama gymnast is still bringing the awards in. We'll tell you about it next. And more of your phone calls. Listen, phone lines are open again. 205-348-9882 is the line. There is the email address as well. And, of course, hashtag TITV is how you reach us on Twitter. But phone lines are open right now if you've been wanting to get through. Hey, and by the way, when you call in, turn your TV down so you don't get all that feedback like we were having there with previous callers. So turn your TV down when you call in. We'll be back with more phone calls right after this. Now, long after the season is concluded, Alabama gymnast Keely McNear is still raking in the accomplishments and honors. The former Alabama All-American and academic All-American was awarded an NCAA postgraduate scholarship. That's special. Becoming the 20th Alabama gymnast to do so, the most among all NCAA gymnastics programs. I tell you, that's something special. McNear is wrapping up her undergraduate studies in chemical engineering and has plans to attend medical school. Alabama gymnastics for a long time, Rodney. Not only they excelled on the mat, they have excelled in the classroom, and that's more proof of that. All right, let's go to a tweet, Rod. We asked for some tweets, and we've got one, brother. From Don Juan, 382. Gary, who will be the anchor man in the linebacker core, the play caller? Rodney, let's talk about the possibilities. I think Sean Dion Hamilton, if he comes back the way we expect him to, and I think Rashaan Evans is going to be a great player, but I think that will fall in Sean Dion Hamilton's lap. You agree?
Yeah. I think Sean Dion Hamilton's really an outstanding player, and you know everything I've heard, Gary, here recently is that he's supposed to be 100% ready to go. Come August. That's really big news because not only is he an outstanding player, he is a leader. There's no question about that, and I think he's going to be a real key to this defense.
All right, phone lines are open at 205-348-WVUA, so you can get in right now if you call. All right, we got an email that we're going to get to from Doug up in western Massachusetts that often watches us. What is the status of Akil Byers, and is he coming back to Alabama? We're going to set the stage. That's the high school defensive lineman out of Arkansas that originally committed to Alabama, wound up in junior college. Rodney, I don't think he's coming back to UA, is he? Or what's the status
there? Here's the deal. He's from Fayetteville, Arkansas, as you mentioned, and would have been in this past year's class. He appeared headed to junior college. What happened was he did qualify academically, ended up signing with Missouri. So I don't know if he's passed the clearinghouse or whatever, but he was headed to Missouri at last week. Yeah,
so no plans. Right. Even if he didn't get into Missouri, probably not going to be coming back to Alabama.
Yeah, you never know, but you know, in that event, he would probably go JUCO, and then he would be available to be recruited again. But, you know, from all indications, he was headed to Missouri.
All right, so that is the latest on Akil Byers. Doug, thanks for the email. Thanks for the tweets. And we thank you for the phone calls that we had as well. Still to come, a fiery Jim McElwain. Got to wait and see this. Addressing the media today in Hoover. You'll hear from the Florida head coach, and I tell you, he's won 2 SEC East Division championships in 2 years as head coach, and people in Gainesville, some of them are griping. I tell you, he's starting to have enough. Yeah. Seeing a different side of Coach Mack, that's coming up. You'll want to stay tuned to hear and see this when we return. There is a live look outside Bryant-Denny Stadium on the University of Alabama campus. Few clouds, but all in all, a nice evening here in Tuscaloosa. SEC Media Days week just up the road in Hoover. We'll be back with more TITV. You stay with us.
For the record, you had nothing to do with choosing LSU as your homecoming opponent.
For the record, I'm not Nick Saban, so I don't control what we do with football, all right? The university controls what we do.
All right, Coach McElwain. He was a little, I thought, testier today than we're used to seeing him. He's getting some criticism, and all he's done in 2 years at that place is go to 2 SEC championship games and win the East. Now, I don't think that was a shot at Nick Saban. No. What he was saying was Nick Saban, he was trying to allude to the fact that Nick Saban was power enough at Alabama. He probably controls everything. I don't even think Nick Saban does. I still think the athletic department of the university have a lot to say so. But bottom line is this, that fact that Florida picked LSU for its homecoming is getting a lot of play. Jim McElwain had nothing to do with that. Yeah. And, and at the end of the day, they're going to play the game whether it's homecoming or not. The best team's going to win. I think all that stuff gets overhyped a little bit, don't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, I'll say this, too, Gary. As far as McElwain's concerned, you're talking about the criticism like you mentioned. I mean, he won 2 East titles already in his first 2 years. I mean, it's really unbelievable. And he's had some really tough situations because of his quarterback situation. Hey, his first quarterback, Will Greer, they were really good until he went down that first year. So, he's had some tough luck.
Well, as Brandon Kamerman said earlier from Hoover, we wish Alabama had been today or yesterday, so we'd had all that coverage for you on TITV. But they are tomorrow. We'll be there live. I'll be there for my radio show in the morning on Tide 102.9 and also live sports tomorrow night at 5 and 6. And then we'll have a bunch of Alabama stuff for you next week here on TITV. Our beautiful shirts and ties, as always, provided by the Locker Room downtown Tuscaloosa, home of the original Elephant Wear. Go by and see Alex and Rush and the crew in person or shop online, and you'll be glad you did. They'll make you look like $1 million. You can catch a replay of the show tonight at 10:30 or anytime at WVUA23.com. For Rodney, I'm Gary. Good night, everybody.